Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, namaste. Greetings wherever you are in your side of the world. Oh, have you guys been experiencing a lot of contentment, joy, peace in preparation for this class? I know that I have, so thank you for allowing me to teach about it. I wasn't quite sure how I was going to teach about something that comes fairly naturally to me. I had the same dilemma when recently at Camp I Am Love this past weekend. I was asked to teach about grace, and I went, what? You can't teach grace. Grace just is. And then I got out of my way, and we did teach about how grace can't be taught. We talked about the realization and revelation of grace. And we also taught a class called Judgment Detox, and it was so relevant that I decided to teach it to you. And it's well practiced by now with this judgment teaching. One of the things that Lilith said about that is, you think you're prepared to teach judgment, and you're very judgmental. And I went, oh. So I'll let you chew on that until our Judgment Detox class. What does she mean by I'm very judgmental? But I can leave you with a brief little teaser. There are two types of judgment. One is regressive judgment. That is not the name of my game. And one is progressive judgment or creative judgment. And that's what she meant when she said I was judgmental. So then I got to teach about the, negative and positive aspects of judgment, and then later we taught about the revelation of grace. So a lot of the material today is coming from Yeshua, a little bit of Lilith, although not much today. She just kind of slid something through, at the tail end of the teaching. So a lot from Yeshua. We have some teachings that'll lead you through the very back of the Way of Mastery class. And just a couple of verses from A Course in Miracles that I'm including as well. And then a new quote that I've never quite heard before from Sri Ramana Maharshi, one of my most beloved masters, came through at the tail end of the class as well. Now's a good time for you to be placing your questions in the Ask a Question section. If you have never sat with me before in one of these Crowdcast hosted classes, what you should know is that you need to be on a Chrome browser, preferably, or any Windows browser. That's going to be helpful in being able to talk back and forth with me in chat and in the Ask a Question section. If for any reason you would like to work live with me at the end of this time, let me know, try to catch my attention, and Erin will, ping me and let me know. If I don't, I have my phone on Erin if for any reason I don't see the chat. I've just turned it on. So if he can't get my attention, he'll text me. And we're going to begin. So thank you. We're going to begin with the first quote from Yeshua, and it is long and powerful, and I'm really overwhelmed that it was shared in my meditation this morning. The key to joy is moving through fear. Move with grace through all of your choices, decisions, and actions. Speak when your lips are trembling. Move when your body is shaking. Act with trust even when your mind is uncertain. Respond with courage in all situations. A growing excitement will rumble within your very chest until it cannot be contained, and until you explode with joy in the present moment of every now. To be in joy means that you are so grateful that you celebrate every moment. Joy is courage. Now I'm going to do a little screen share with you about frequencies. We had a class not too long ago about the scale of consciousness, and It was an amazing expression from the Lion People and David Hawkins, where there was a revamping of what David Hawkins knew at that time as the scale of consciousness. So going back to that class material, and thank you, Eva, for putting this together. This is the new scale of consciousness as shared with me by the Lion People, by the ambassadors of the Lyran feline beings, and David Hawkins. So to be in joy, if you'll notice, going from the new scale of consciousness, from the very bottom here, which is shame, to the very top here, which is grace, joy is actually at 540. So it's a very high frequency. Now, there are some steps that no matter what you are experiencing, hopefully you can see my mouse, no matter what you are experiencing, oh, look, I can write on things. Down here, okay, all this down here that I've just made bold, everything, shame, apathy, guilt, grief, and all the stages thereof, arrogance or pride, anger, egoic desire, and disgust and loathing, no matter what you're going through, start here. I'm going to underline, coming in at a frequency of 200. Joy actually starts here, which is why the quote that was just shared by Yeshua is really relevant, because no matter what we are experiencing, if we start with courage to look at things, to look at what meaning we're attaching to everything that we value, and what I mean by everything that we value is your life, your circumstances, your idols, if you will, things that you pay matter to, things that you make significant to you, no matter what, within all these negative, fearful things, if you can just jump straight to here and start looking at things differently and have courage to place an innocence on what you're valuing in your life, it's going to be easy to pull in wonder, which is when you move up here to neutrality. Okay. And you get, and wonder can be an interesting phenomenon, because when you begin to question that which you hold and judge with meaning, you begin to wonder. And when you do that, you lift your frequency. Not only do you have courage, but if you can say, okay, something is unpleasant, something, is disgusting, loathsome, fearsome, and I feel disempowered, helpless, angry, any of that. If I have courage to question all of that in a place of neutrality and find out how it can possibly be neutral and innocent, as Yeshua has stated, it can be easier. It can just be easier to go through that when you look at something with innocence. And you look at all your motivations, all of your reactions, all of your emotional responses with innocence. This breeds a neutral curiosity to just sort of get up here. So we have neutrality here at 250 frequency, curiosity, which is a level of positive wonder, which comes in at 310 frequency. These two breed this. You have reason right here. And what David Hawkins means by reason is discernment and wisdom of divine understanding. So this is the precognition that many of you telepaths hold, and many of you here watching today have mastered that knowledge that just comes in a moment when ego is silent, and you just say, I really don't know why, I don't know how, I don't really know what either. I know nothing, and I am okay in this uncertainty. This level of discernment brings you to such a forgiveness of whatever was way down here below the 200 scale, on the 200 frequency on the scale of consciousness. This reason breeds such a forgiveness that automatically everything becomes innocent, which, here you go, that means love. You begin to examine how a situation and circumstance that was formerly all of these negative things below 200, like fear, apathy, shame, arrogance, anger, loathing, how any of that, once it's forgiven, you recognize how it is a call to love, how it was for love. And if it still is, it's a call to love. And then you finally get up here to joy, once love occurs because of the forgiveness that was arising from discernment and wisdom and reason. The joy is what Yeshua was talking about when he was stating, there's a growing excitement which will rumble within your very chest until it cannot be contained and until you explode with joy in the present moment of every now. So what that means to me, in the present moment of every now, he didn't say in the present moment of now. That would have been a little bit different. His words are incredibly simple. He means every now, meaning you're going to go up and down on that scale of consciousness. And within following the steps of this class, the steps to joy, you will actually be able to make every moment of uncertainty in those lower frequencies from 20 to 200 become neutral and then eventually joyful. So no, it's not instantaneous, Linda. It happens in steps. Now, granted, I can't say that it isn't instantaneous for some people, but I can say that in most cases, it does take some practice. Some people can find that instantaneous joy. Some take some time. With practice, I will tell you that it can happen instantaneously when you trust it. So here's the first step that he gave to me. He asked me to question something. He said, you really need to bring into your awareness your addiction to suffering. So the question that he presented, the first step is to question your addiction to suffering by asking, what is your current favorite method of suffering? I call this your flavor. Suffering is kind of like ice cream. And we're here in karmic patterns. And for duality, karma has tasted very good to the extent that it has become an addiction. Such a fun question, Amber said. Well, the class is supposed to be joyful. So we're talking about suffering, and he referred it to ice cream flavors. My favorite is Rocky Road, which is an incredibly complicated type of ice cream because if you think about it, it has like almonds and marshmallows and chocolate and like something fudgy and a little bit of caramel, and it has all these different forms of complex blended suffering, right? My favorite blend of suffering presently is fear of uncertainty, which pretty much encompasses the entirety of this class, and we'll get there in a moment. So this suffering, he would like for you to observe as addiction because it is programming. He said that observing this is where you will understand that this suffering is where you hide from joy. So here are some common emotional feeling signatures where we hide from joy. These will sound familiar. Shame, apathy, guilt, arrogance, anger, loathing, boredom, and isolation or loneliness. So in this hiding, what the ego does is it creates excuses, and it will say, I can't do this because I'm too bored. I can't experience joy because I'm lonely. I can't because I'm overwhelmed. A lot of empaths experience this one, when we go out into the world and it becomes incredibly overwhelming in our senses. The body will create a physical circumstance like migraines or vertigo or situations where we can hide from joy because we are addicted to our programming. And it's really a thread that goes underneath the surface and into the subconscious where we're so programmed that we don't often recognize it. So step 2 is acceptance. A lot of that material will be in my channeled book, A Course in Forgiveness. So to accept that it is safe to feel all of these emotions that we just discussed, all of the hiding places. So I would like to define acceptance a little bit more. Acceptance does not mean that this is the way it is, and therefore you get to stay there and continue making excuses to not feel joy. Because remember, joy takes courage. Acceptance isn't saying it's this way and it's always going to be this way in general. Acceptance should not bring you into powerlessness. Acceptance is to observe a situation without a judgment of anything. So that, interesting, a Hillel definition of acceptance. That's where that came through just now. He does that sometimes. So that Hillel's version of acceptance is complete innocence on everything, no meaning, no value. It just is. You don't think about, will it be that way in the future? Did it come from the past? Do you use that as an excuse to stay that way because you're afraid? None of that comes through your mind. It just is. This is the moment. That is all. We will cover that in a moment, but that is a good question, Linda. She was asking, why do we feel the need to hide or seemingly avoid joy? We do that because of programming, which we're about to cover here in a moment. So in step 3, Yeshua went on to state, accept that living a creative, powerful life means that you will be uncertain. There's no way to continue to avoid that. You will be uncertain about everything, except 2 things. And we'll get to those 2 things at the end of the class. That's when Sri Ramana Maharshi came in. Hi, Susan. Step 4, give up being a control freak. This is from Lilith, and it was for me personally. And for many of you, because obviously we are one. And if I'm feeling it, many of you empaths must also be feeling it and going through it. Because for those of us who fear uncertainty, we can be afraid to let go of control. So step number 4 from Lilith, give up being a control freak. And then the question she has is, are you committed to living a life of trust even when things don't go your way? I love that face that you made, Linda. I can see it through the screen. Step number 5, go deeper with your uncertainty. Not only will things not go your way, but sometimes your deepest, darkest fears will arise. They are happening for you, not to you. How do I get through this? You will ask yourself. And here, Yeshua answers your question with a quote. Remember your role in this world. It is to bring the love and innocence of God's kingdom within you to your external world. What you see in the insane external world will only be seen and experienced as sane when you can see only love and innocence internally. Does anyone need a repeat? Okay. How do you go deeper into uncertainty? He answered with this quote, remember your role in this world. It is to bring the love and innocence of God's kingdom within you to your external world. What you see in the insane external world will only be seen and experienced as sane when you see only love and innocence internally. So in other words, all of these feelings that I asked him personally what that meant, I know it was very profound and yet simultaneously so simple. So I asked him to kind of make that more simple for us. And he flipped my page back over when I was going over this material earlier. And he said, all of those things that you mentioned, the common hiding places, shame, apathy, guilt, arrogance, anger, disgust, loathing, boredom, and loneliness, all of those things, if they come from inside, that means you're not realizing the innocence of God's kingdom in you. You are clinging to the programming of worldly conditioning, and then your external world is seen as all these things, which is why you feel that way. You're seeing all these things and blaming the external world, but what's happening is coming from a deep programming where you believe that your ego is God's kingdom, and it isn't. Do you understand? Any questions? Okay. All right. Step 6 about programming. He said, commit to reprogramming yourself. Release the survival programs within you and reprogram your mind to experience acceptance, courage, neutrality and wonder, love, and then joy. How? Judgment detox. That class will be available coming up soon in a couple of weeks. So these things, joy relates directly to releasing all of these programmings, and that requires detoxing yourself from judgment. So those two things, this will help you further. He gave a brief little thing that you can do until the judgment detox class. And he said you need to question the thoughts that arise, question the ego. And then while he was doing that, he showed me like a microscope. An ego was under it, like this little bug, just kind of moving around. And I thought, well, why do I need to look at that? It's just a little bug. But then as I was looking through it, I could see that it was a pretty complex little bug. It was a virus. And for those of you who understand from the medical perspective about how a virus operates, and parasites much in the same way, if spread around, they just really, really grow. And with parasites, you may think it's a tiny little thing, but it grows the more the ego adds all of those lower frequency foods, such as shame and loathing, and boredom is actually a lower frequency. So it feeds something that is seemingly small. And then if it's a parasite, it can eat your entire system. If it's a virus, it can wreak havoc on whatever system it is attempting to operate within. So you can put your ego up underneath the microscope and ask it questions. And here are the questions. When you have any of those thoughts, you would say, is it true? Is it true? Well, sometimes ego doesn't care if it's true. It wants to continue regardless because it's addicted to the pain and the suffering. So then even if you say yes, even if ego says yes, which most of the time it will, the second question is it helpful? Is this thought helpful? And now this is the question you don't expect. The third question is it compassionate? Compassion is a golden thread of grace that is interwoven. And when it is interwoven between an untrue, unhelpful, unloving thought, it automatically reprograms that untrue, unhelpful, unloving thought. So when I mean for you to follow and question your ego within that third line of questioning, is it compassionate? Please know that Jesus didn't just mean, is it compassionate to other people? Is it compassionate to you? Is actually the more important question. I don't know how many of you are experiencing this, but in the last class, we had a big discussion on empath overwhelm and the need for boundaries for purposes of self-love, because it is compassionate to the healer, the empath, etc. That's where that comes in, healers and empaths. Know that sometimes when you need to do that, when you need to go within, when you need to say no, when you need to not sacrifice, that is incredibly important. Step 7. All right, we're going through pretty fast. Commit to releasing death thoughts. This is from Hillel. And I asked him, what did he mean by death thoughts? And this is the part of what Yeshua is discussing as the programming. Death thoughts. So all those thoughts. And he said, death thoughts are any thought that produces suffering. Any thoughts that are the result of these 3 things. He's going to give examples of death thoughts now. We'll start here. And here's how you can identify death thought. If the thought comes with, I will have, number 1, loss. I will have loss. I will have less than. I will never have. or I will always have. That is actually a death thought as well. So if within the questioning of your ego, you become afraid to move through it, and the answer is because I will have loss, I will have less than, I will never have, or I will always have, like, and the always isn't positive. The always would be a fill in the blank for that would be I will always have something bad. That is what it is. Okay, and then the other example that Hilal gave was when you're focusing on what you want to create enjoy, the ego can step in and make excuses not to do that. And the excuses are, I will have loss. I can't do it because I will have loss. I will have less. I will never have something, or I will always have, say, too much of something negative. And your ego, when it wants to create these excuses or to not feel joy, basically it's because of a phenomenon of not accepting life as it really is. So this is when we put an over amount of focus. We're like at the microscope on what is in a negative sense. Like, for instance, when we want to be in joy and we want to create a new life and we want to deprogram this false illusion matrix-based negative understandings and feeling signatures, but we don't do it, we will often say, we'll often like put the microscope on our life and focus too much on what is. So my life is blank, therefore I can't have joy. My life is not blank, therefore I cannot have joy. So for instance, this comes into place to give examples. I had a client who is stuck in a corporate job that is draining her. She is a healer, she is an empath, and she's got so much negative primitive fight or flight programming from the collective of employees and colleagues and whatnot. And the whole system there in her corporate job, and I believe she's in like San Francisco or San Diego, she's a real city corporate job. And the whole system is producing fight or flight response in order to market something, sell something. It's all numbers, and if you're successful based upon if you make the company money or not. So she's like, well, I can't quit that job and find my joy because I have too many bills. I can't quit my job and find my joy because my husband will find out about my credit card debt that I'm secretly paying behind his back. There is what Halo described about this is this excuse is based upon lack of authenticity. So when you are disingenuous and you are hiding who you are and you are hiding who you are not, if either of those things come up, this is a state of lack. And there was a Course in Miracles card that came up when I was just kind of going, how do I describe that? And I was flipping through I have a deck of Course in Miracles cards that keeps me in line sometimes. And here's the card that came up. Whenever you are not wholly joyous, it is because you have reacted with a lack of love to one of God's creations. So in this unique example that Halal focuses on, because so many empaths appear to be stuck in negative environments, particularly negative, joyous environments, she was saying this job is so not joyful. I'm focusing on exactly what it is, which is it keeps me in alleged financial security, and then exactly what it is not, which is it is not joyous, right? But if she were wholly joyous, she would be finding love in that creation and completely reprogramming herself from all of the things that she thinks that she's coming from in terms of, I will have loss if I leave. I will have less if I leave. I will never be financially secure if I leave. That was another one of her excuses. It was, what if I don't find a job with a reciprocal amount of money, or even better, or what if I don't find a job at all? And then I will always, it's like, I will be in lack. I will always be in lack. That came up as a fear of hers as well. So that is lack of authenticity. That is lack of trust in Holy Spirit. So what came up when I was honoring this example, I was having Russ look through A Course in Miracles to find me something that would explain this, because it felt like an ultimate path of confusion for her and for many people who are trying to make these decisions about how to get out of loss, less, never, and always. So this is what he found that I'm going to read to you that really stuck with me. And this is Yeshua, for those of you who don't know Course in Miracles. It is this big blue book right here that I'm getting this from. And it is channeled. All the material in here is straight from Yeshua. So here it is. Even the relinquishment of your false decision-making prerogative, which the ego guards so jealously, is not accomplished by your wish. It was accomplished for you by the will of God, who has left you comfortless. His voice will teach you how to distinguish between pain and joy, and will lead you out of the confusion you have made. There is no confusion in the mind of a son of God. And when they say son of God, that's us. We are fractals of God. And in Course in Miracles, they call that sons and daughters of God. So that's us. There's no confusion in the mind of a son of God, whose will must be the will of Father, because the Father's will is his Son. Miracles that are in accord with the will of God, whose will you do not know because you are confused about what you will. So that is what struck me the most. Then he goes on to say, this means that you are confused about what you are. If you are God's will and do not accept God's will, you are denying joy. The miracle is therefore a lesson in what joy is. Being a lesson in sharing it is a lesson in love, which is joy. Every miracle is thus a lesson in truth. And by offering truth, you are learning the difference between pain and joy. So that right there, by offering truth, you are learning the difference between pain and joy. As I was reading that, his examples of what would be disingenuous and lacking in authenticity and lacking in truth when you're staying in a job that drains you, when you're doing something that's not compassionate to you and for you, going back to the questions, is it true? Is it helpful? Is it compassionate? Anything that's no, and no to that is lacking in truth. And when you do what he says here, by offering truth, you're learning the difference between pain and joy, then you can begin to really discern in your life what is pain and sacrifice and what is true joy. Because when you follow, as this statement says, when you follow the will of Spirit within you, listening to the voice of God within you, even something that's hard is going to be joy. So, and what's evidenced by that is when he says, this means you're confused about what you are. So up in here in verse 7, it says, it was accomplished for you by the will of God, who has not left you comfortless. So this is not going to be painful, in other words. Okay, let me find my bookmarker. Okay, I took the bookmarker out and I put it in Word Mastery. Okay. All right, so step 8, see life as it really is. This is from Lilith again. Accept that this state is perfect. Know that excuses are BS and find something to appreciate. Pretty much that's the part that leads to so much joy for me, because after I've gone through that whole line of questions and really done a deeper level of inquiry with ego, I understand that everything that happens is for me to learn. Therefore, everything is accepted. Everything is perfect. Excuses are BS. They are not true. They are not helpful. And they cause sacrifice of the self. So getting out of excuses, know that excuses are BS. And then the final part of that, find something to appreciate. When you really ask yourself, what is for me? And in the Judgment Detox course, the part of inquiry for that is, what wants to happen now? When you ask that question, what wants to happen now? And I would like for you to do this level of inquiry to your heart, not your inner child. What wants to happen now? When you do that, whatever arises will be that something to appreciate. Try it. Trust me on that, please. I have done it, and it is an amazing line of inquiry. I got a lot of these levels of inquiry from my class called The Art of Spiritual Inquiry, which we did do on Patreon a couple months ago, and it's also on my website. And then finally, in step 8, we have this from Sri Ramana Maharshi, this lovely little gem that I promised you in regards to all that is uncertain and how to know the difference between what can be certain and what isn't. He said, and this is a quote, Sri Ramana Maharshi, all is uncertain before enlightenment except 2 things. What is inward and what is outward. After enlightenment, you can't tell the difference, but this matters not. And he was really cute, and he laughed when he stated this. It was really interesting because when he told me that, I asked him to explain more. So I went onto YouTube, and for some reason, I was led towards Satguru. And for those of you who know who he is pretty simple. Everything he says is very simple. He is funny. Had no idea he was going to be funny, but he is so funny and also so wise. He described this phenomenon of understanding what is internal and what is external in a very unique and simple way. He said, all of you are often looking externally, and when something unpleasant happens in your life and uncertainty happens in your life, you are looking up here. You're looking up to God. You're looking up to the heavens. He said, so you hear this phenomenon that the world is round, right? So if that were to be true, and you're on a round globe, which we're not going to get into these theories today, don't worry. Within this theory, you're looking up, and from whatever part of the world you're in, if you're looking up and you're looking out, you can pretty much understand that. And this is what Satguru said. He said, and then the damn world is spinning. He said it like that because he curses sometimes. He said, and then the damn thing is spinning. And Robin Williams was like behind him, like copycatting him, which was freaking hilarious. And then the damn thing is spinning. So if it's spinning, you cannot have a reference point towards always wherever you look at any point being North Pole, because you are in motion. You are in motion. This is the beauty of this world. So to be looking externally when you are creating motion and chaos in order to deprogram yourself and reprogram yourself, deprogram from fear and reprogram with grace, you cannot look out here because it is always going to change. That is why we have the scale of consciousness, because it is necessary to be within the full gambit of all of those expressions to learn. So looking inward is really important. And when you reach that stage of enlightenment, or realize it rather, it's really not going to matter what's external or internal, because everything is love, everything is joy. I'm going to close this class today by answering some of your questions here in a moment. But prior to when I do that, I'm going to read you some excerpts from Way of Mastery. That is this book here, which I recently started studying. And I don't study a lot. And for some reason, this is really touching me. And it feels true as per, the channeling of Yeshua that comes through it. So I was flipping through looking for joy, and as I often do, I just kind of went to the back looking for an index, and nothing was there. And I'm like, behaving as a master. Well, we already do that. Why am I reading that? And Jesus kind of moved my eyes and fingers over here to this side of the book, and he said, no, it's here. Service is the greatest source of joy. So I'm going to read you some of the things that stood out. And he was very specific. The highest level of joy is to manifest service to the atonement. The atonement, by the way, is a realization of love, and atonement is similar to forgiveness. For those of you who understand that definition, Russ would probably be able to describe it better than I. What's your definition of atonement?
All is love.
It's love. Okay. There you go. Everything you see is love. right? That's that innocence of what you value. If you can look upon innocence with it and see everything as only love, that is atonement. So, yeah, the highest level of joy is to manifest service to atonement. And then he went on to say, that is why perhaps one gives up a job in a corporation to go and start videos that could help get a good message to the world. That is why someone ceases to work in a doctor's office and becomes a messenger for Joshua. That is why someone drops what they're doing in a corporate career and becomes a minister, because within them, the soul has said, all right, enough of that experience. I want greater joy. And the pathway to greater joy is to join with like minds that are creating and extending contexts in which other minds can awaken. Service, then, is the natural outflow of a heart filled with the gratitude of grace. That really stood out for me, gratitude of grace, because to me, being in joy, automatically I feel grateful. My personal first step in joy is to find something to appreciate automatically, no matter what that something is, even if it feels fake at first, because appreciation does not always feel happy and joyful at first. It is a transmutation of one feeling signature to another more relevant, to another more relevant as you move up and about and around the scale of consciousness. So for me, I find something to be grateful for and to inevitably appreciate. That is my first step in joy. So this stood out for me. I'll read that again. Service is the natural outflow of a heart filled with a gratitude of grace. That is from Way of Mastery, which is everything is channeled through Yeshua. And then he gave a little bit of a statement about mastery and what masters do. He said, masters aren't found struggling to survive in something they do not like. They would frankly rather sit on a street corner, asking passerbys for a nickel or two to get a cup of coffee. Meanwhile, they are busy smelling and waving and blessing everyone that walks by, because they would rather love than look good to the world. A master has no choice but to serve not from duty, but from joy. For the greatest joy can be to extend the joy, the holy, and the beautiful. Therefore, when you choose active participation in serving the atonement, you will discover that you will indeed be well supported. I really like that, because so many of you come to me and they say, you often say, well, I would like a path of joy. I would like a path of service and to find my joy and to share this with the world. I would like to be a service messenger of the Christ consciousness. I would like to be a channel of Christ consciousness. I would like to. And what do I say to you? Students of mine, what would I say? Go ahead and be me for a minute. I'm going to wait on you too. What would I say to you if you came to me and said that? I'm waiting. Somebody type. I hear the crickets. Don't think, just type. I know you know. Especially you, Linda, because I just told you that. Ah, Amber. Yes, you are that. So if you are that, how are you? Yes, Linda, I told you to go be that. There's no questioning. There's no, can I survive financially? There's no, how's this going to work? There's no, what's my family going to think? Nope. That's ego judging your situation and making excuses, which what did Lilith say excuses are? Can we go back to that part of the class? Excuses are BS. So you will be well supported. Limitations is a nicer word, Amber. Lilith really likes BS. She liked that word. So, yeah. So he went on to say, all of the events that occur are merely opportunities to deepen your capacity for wisdom, for peace, and for love, to create within yourself a conduit for the extension of greater love into the world. Not because you must, but because you have chosen to serve. And you have chosen to serve because it is the greatest source of joy. So there you have from Yeshua, the greatest source of joy, according to Yeshua in Way of Mastery, is service. Okay, we have about 15 more minutes, which will give me a little bit of time to, oh, I know you love service. You're amazing at it, Maria, and thank you. I'm grateful. Oh, yes, that. Okay, yes, we can talk about that because I'm right there with you. You guys, we're such reflections of each other right now, and always, but especially lately, I'm observing it more. First question of the class right here. Can the frequency of joy or bliss take you to a different level of consciousness? Yes, because when you think about it, joy is a precursor. When we look at this, let me screen share with you again the new scale of consciousness for 2018 to 2020. Unless it changes again, which it might. So when you're looking at that, you're coming out of all of this, which, by the way, is incredibly draining. And it takes a lot of energy just to get to the frequency of 200, which is courage. It takes a lot of courage to get to neutrality and curiosity. It takes even more energy to get to reason. So by the time you're getting up here to love and joy and peace and bliss, you're not used to all of this from 500, 540, and 600. That's love, joy, peace. So you're actually not used to that, and you're still recovering from the lower frequencies, which means, yes, it's going to take a little bit of time. So yes, it can bring you to a new level of consciousness. Then she goes on to ask, within this new level of consciousness, do you actually feel and connect with everyone in oneness at a high level of love? Not yet, because let me share the screen again. Okay, share screen. So oneness is actually way up here. Let's see, up here at 900. So when you're at these frequencies, which is kind of where you are, love, joy, and peace seem to blend together, interwoven with compassion, which keeps all of them kind of balanced and utilized as need be and as you want to creatively express. So then you're going to go to celebration, which is actually one of the highest frequencies on the planet. It's synonymous with appreciation. And then you're going to go to wholeness, and then unity, and then oneness. So oneness is kind of up here. You can experience intermittent glimpses of oneness within all of these three things because it is showing you pieces of everything that you need to get here. So it's not to say you won't, because you will. These are building blocks for this. So you have to experience it to some degree, but you will predominantly be here. Okay. All right. Okay, this is the question that I saw first, but then it jumped. This is what really caught my attention. I've been feeling much bliss and joy lately, and I've also been feeling so sleepy that I need a nap every day. Are these related? I believe that they are. Immediately prior to this class, I was sitting here with my partner, and I said, I don't know why this is happening to me, but, and I should rephrase my programming. I don't know why this is happening for me. Realize how subtle programming is. But I'm feeling exhausted, and every day at 3:30 for the past 3 days, I'm on day 3 of this. I get so exhausted between 3:30 and I want to say 8 p.m. that I have to go to bed early. Like I'm rushing to get dinner out of the way and all these sort of things, when what my body is saying is, get your butt home and take a nap, which I can't do because most of the time I have class at 4. So I'm actually exhausted right now. And joy is what's keeping me able to teach this class, but I feel really, really woozy. And the reason for that is it actually, I don't know exactly how best to explain this, but I will try. Your physiological body is used to operating within a certain type of resonance, and it's used to that programming. So when you shift it suddenly and exponentially, you have to adjust to that. Much in the same way, Yeshua loves this particular analogy to explain it. When you're driving down the road in an old car, say your body and your old program frequencies are the old car, you get this certain shaking in your engine between, say, I want to say like starts at about 55, and for older cars, it may not stop until about 60 or 65, about 65, 66, sometimes up to 70 if the car's really old. And then what happens is there's an adjustment between the physicality in the engine and the energy running through everything. help me car person. Does that make sense?
I mean, it smooths out when you go faster.
Yeah, it smooths out when you go faster. So, but basically the body of the car starts to shake and grumble, and you can feel it. If you have older cars, I, up until this year, drove like clunkers, basically. So, finally got a decent car in my life. But prior to then, I'm traveling, and I always hit that shaky point, and my hands are shaking on the wheel and everything. And then when I hit 70, it just kind of balances out. And this is what the motion does initially, and it's tiring to the physicality. It's tiring to form. And when form begins to be interwoven with compassion, this is actually incredibly scientific, and it lifts the frequency of everything that you're experiencing below 200 hertz and 200 in that scale of consciousness. It lifts that speed of sound. As speed of sound goes upward, it becomes resonance of light, but there's a shaky time. And a lot of us on the planet, in the collectives of empathic healers, empathic channels, just me, that's many of you, we are in that shaky time where we need a lot of rest. We need naps. We need to rejuvenate. And then things will go smoothly as compassion becomes that technology that is interwoven so that we consciously, not just subconsciously, but consciously become aware of how grace is. So we're getting used to grace, is the best way that I can put it. Is that making sense to you? Do you have any questions about that? Okay. All right. Next question. What is the difference between neutrality and peace? Most of the time I stay calm. Is that peace or neutrality? Okay, I will share the screen again to try to explain this. Give me just a second. All right. So going back to the scale of consciousness one more time, we have neutrality, which is the first thing you do after courage, which courage is down here at about 200 hertz. So at 250, that's when you begin to wonder and just say, I wonder if I can look upon this situation with an innocence in its value. I wonder if any former meaning of all of this, anywhere from 20 to 175, shame, apathy, guilt, grief, despair, hopelessness, boredom, ego, arrogance, anger, disempowerment, egoic desire, disgust, loathing. I wonder if I can feel something different, even if I don't know what it is. I wonder if this outcome can be something different, even if I don't know what it is. This isn't going my way, so I need to look at it differently because my way felt bad. Yeah, that's neutrality. So peace is actually way up here. You see the difference in frequency between 250 and 600? So peace is actually above the frequency of joy. Peace is really an alternating state of contentment and bliss. So peace is an experience of natural samadhi. So does that answer your question, Pien? How can I handle the uncertainty that I have instilled in others? Lilith goes, whoa, back up. So she said, first of all, question ego. How is it possible that you instilled something in someone else? If they are you, if oneness is true, and believe me, it is, how is it possible for that to be true? For there to be, you did something to someone if you're one. And then she went on to say, so how can I handle uncertainty I've instilled in others via my actions when following my heart? So your actions when following your heart are for the greatest good of others, even if they don't like it, and even if they are uncertain. Answers from Lilith there. She just kind of backed you up. She's like, whoa, forgive that. It's not true. Okay. I know you're listening, so I feel that you understand. please give me a little nod because I can see you in chat and feel your energy here. I think that you're getting it. I love Lilith too. She said, Kalan said, my girl's got me. Yeah, Lilith is awesome. Next question. We have just about 6 more minutes or so. Will joy become attachment that when I don't want to lose it? Anything can become attachment when you don't want to lose it, because within true oneness, you understand that nothing can be lost, that all perspectives, perceptions, all experiencing is for joy, is for love, is for oneness, is for some higher loving expression of God within you. So it's not possible to lose it. Joy is not something to be obtained. It is the thread of compassion that causes for contentment, love, peace, and bliss within everything that appears to be external. That quote is from Halo. And then she went on to say, will it be better to work on being in a peaceful or neutral state of mind? Lilith again, she said, I can't answer that question for you because the answer shifts based upon your creativity. So sometimes peace is a lofty goal, she says, when you don't feel an alignment. For instance, if authenticity means an expression that you're angry, if authenticity means an expression that you are still in a place of unforgiveness, be that for a moment, and that authenticity leads to your peace because of the expression of allowance within authenticity. This means that you are not spiritually bypassing your creativity within your emotional expression. Yeah. Does everyone understand that? She says you're confused. Or that you believe you are confused. Did you understand that? Okay. Okay, so she'll rephrase it. She said authenticity is permission at the soul level to have a full creative expression so that every expression breeds, lends, creates peace at some point when you are ready. Does that make more sense?
Yeah, flip it around. Do the opposite. What happens when I hide, when I disregard, dishonor myself? Yeah.
So going back to, yes, you're right. Thank you. I needed some help with that one because I'm learning this too. So going back to the portion of the class earlier when we were talking about where you hide from joy. So those common hiding places, the shame, the apathy, the guilt, the arrogance, all of that. When you do that, that's not an authentic space. That's not an authentic space to just say, well, I'm going to go into that, stay there, or I'm going to hide from that and not feel it at all. So you can't go in it and stay in it and become attached to it. And you can't hide from what you're feeling by saying, I will not feel it at all. Because that bypasses the entire creative scale of consciousness. So does that make more sense? You guys understanding that now?
Yeah, grace is flowing.
Yeah.
Denial is blocking.
Yeah. So in other words, to bypass what you're feeling or to attach to it, judge it, bypass, you're afraid of it. That judgment is not creative judgment. That's not progressive. That is regressive judgment. You will understand the difference between regressive judgment and progressive judgment in the judgment detox class coming up. It is on the schedule. Yeah. So attaching to it or staying in it. All right. So she can't answer your question. Like, be where you are is what Sri Ramana Maharshi is saying about that. Oh, okay. Oh, that's beautiful. Wow. The next question. I have been unemployed for a few months now, doing my inner work and working on my home. Halal actually stopped you and he said, what is home a metaphor? What? You think you're being literal, but your soul just spoke through your words. What is actually your home? He wants you to question that deeper. I love when they step in and they don't let me answer. The next part of your question. I know that I am a nature element and I must work with plants. Good. But if I move through the fear of obtaining a more profitable job, is this part of my path simply because I will and know it to be so? There's something floating through my consciousness right now. Give me a second. I need a pen. You know, I have all kind of pens all the time, and then I don't. You do until you don't. So I am not connecting the dots between, so you're saying you've been unemployed, you know, and when you say, I know you mean house, but Lilith and Halal are asking you to go deeper with that expression, and they know that you know that what does that mean? What are you working on? It's like you're working on your body, your thoughts, your soul, something, your expression, all of that. You're not just working on your house. And then you're going into creative expression. I want to get this right, what Lilith is saying. She says there's a difference between flowing and allowing grace to be your creativity and creating from form. So content or form. Content. This is the thread, this compassion, this technology of compassion that really helps you move up the scale of consciousness that we've been teaching about today. And compassion is the key to the mastery of all of it. And this is true creation from grace when it is not stagnant. You're trusting and moving no matter what you're feeling. And a lot of times when I'm in allowance, the metaphor that the angels give me, they ask me to close my eyes and we go into the ether. And the exercise used to be terrifying. When I would do this as a little girl, they would say, pretend that you are on the edge of the earth. And now you're going to step off of it. And I would go, what do you mean I will step off of it? I'm going to fall into the ether, right? And then they're like, step and trust that we will catch your step. And I'm like, well, it's space. It's dark. I don't know what's there. It's empty, this void. So I would step and then they would grasp their hands and do like this and catch me. And then they'd say, now move your foot a little further, maybe stretch a little bit this time, not baby steps this time. Maybe jump this time, maybe leap this time, maybe leap a lot. So in grace creation, it is the allowance of every feeling of uncertainty as it comes without committing to the way of ego. And this means you will not know your path. You will not know your way. So when you will something to be so, this is a space of creation from form. This is body and mind, and there is nothing wrong with it, but there is a difference. Because form kind of gets stuck. You know how the body can be and the mind can be. So there's a difference between creating from content and grace and allowance and creating from form, which is up and down and all over the place. And because you willed something to happen and said, this is my next step, because it pays money, because it makes sense, because I want it. There's nothing wrong with wanting money and wanting things to make sense. However, do you have the thread of compassion through any of that? If you do, You're not going to be sacrificing yourself, and you're going to be walking in allowance and grace. So that is the difference. Does everybody understand that answer?
We need help with our plants.
Yeah, I need some advice from you on plants. My plants aren't liking me right now or something. Liv said, whoa, that's a judgment. Okay. I would like to be able to stay and answer all these questions, but I just can't. We got a couple more, and I'm just going to let them be and trust that you're going to come upon the answer whenever you do, and perfect divine trust. So I'll let Erin post our classes, and I appreciate your time. I think that I'm going to go at least prepare my dinner and get it in the oven and put my alarm clock on and take a nap if my body says I need to. And for any of you who need to do the same, pay attention to that, because this is an adjustment in energy, and it's going to require that compassion. And if compassion means rest for you, please go do it, and I will do the same. I will see you tomorrow for the Leonardo da Vinci channeling.